All right, Mr. Chairman, it's 5:30. If you just want to run, we'll just run through the agenda real quick, and then you can get back to eating.
Sure. Thank you. Please.
So tonight, item number 1, looking at a deferral again to date specific of next month. That would be
June 8th.
Yes, correct. Item number 2, we would propose for consent.
Okay.
Item number 3, we will hear. We're expecting some public on that one. Item number 4, we would propose for consent. And item number 5, we have public on as well, so we'll hear that one.
Okay. Questions for Josh on the agenda items, guys?
Okay. All right.
Great. Well, thanks.
We'll start up here at 6 o'clock.
Sounds good. Thanks, Josh. Good evening. I would like to call the May 11th, 2022 Design Review Committee meeting to order. Christina, will you please call the roll?
Simple,
Here.
Zabala,
Here.
Routine,
Here.
Marsh,
Here.
Aguilar,
Here.
Zuckerman, Erstad,
Here.
6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. We have one item. I'm sorry. At this time, I'll also take a motion for the April 13th, 2022 minutes. Again.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Zabala.
I would move for approval of the hearing minutes of April 13th, 2022 as provided by staff.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Erstad. Christina, will you please call the roll?
Simple,
Aye.
Zabala,
Aye.
Routine,
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Marsh,
Aye.
Aguilar,
Aye.
Erstad,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you. There is one item up for deferral tonight. That's item number 1, which is DRH 21-00376. Location is 6259 South Pleasant Valley Road. It's for the construction of a new approximately 1,080,289 square foot warehouse and distribution center located in an M1D zone. Is there any member of the public wishing to speak of this item who cannot make next month's June 8th date? Is there anyone online either? Please virtually raise your hands. Seeing none. This item be considered for deferral, and at this time I'd take a motion on the deferrals.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would move that we defer DRH 21-00376 to the June 8th meeting.
So moved. Thank you, Mr. Rudin.
Second.
Mr. Rusad, thank you for the second. Christine, will you please call the roll?
Simple,
Aye.
Zabala,
Aye.
Routine,
Aye.
Marsh,
Aye.
Aguilar,
Aye.
Erstad,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
The first item we're going to consider for tonight's consent agenda is item number 2. Item number 2 is DRH 21-00441. Its location is 2500 East Freight Street. It's for the construction of a new approximately 185,300 square foot industrial building with associated site improvements in a property located in an M1D zone. Is the applicant present tonight, either in person or online? Please let the record show the applicant is present. And are you in agreement with recommended conditions of approval? I am, yes. Please let the record show that the applicant is in agreement. Are there any members of the public wishing to testify in opposition to this item? Any online? Seeing none, this item will be moved to the consent agenda. The second item to be considered is item number 4. Item number 4 is DRH 22-00030. Location is 5522 West Franklin Road. It's for the construction of 4 new multifamily residential buildings with 112 units and a clubhouse building and associated site improvements on a property in a C2D zone. Is the applicant present tonight? Please let the record show the applicant is present. Are you in agreement with recommended conditions of approval? Please let the record show the applicant is in agreement. Are there any members of the public wishing to testify in opposition to this item, either in person, any online? Josh, seeing none, this item will also be moved to the consent agenda. And that concludes our items for tonight. And I would be open to take a motion for this consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Reading.
I'd move that we approve consent agenda items DRH 21-00441 and DRH 22-00030.
So moved. Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stead. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Christine, will you please call the roll?
Simple,
Aye.
Zabala,
Aye.
Rudin,
Aye.
Marsh,
Aye.
Aguilar,
Aye.
Erstad.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
The first item we heard tonight will be item number 3. Item number 3 is DRH 21-00448. Location is 1201 Grove Street. And with this, I will turn it off to staff for their report. Josh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So the applicant before you tonight is proposing a 7-story mixed-use residential building located on an entire city block with an alley existing through the middle of the project, bounded by 12th and 13th Streets, and then Front Street and Grove Street. The building is proposed to have structured parking, starting with a floor of parking underground in both buildings. The main floor of the buildings contain a mixture of parking, active uses along the street frontages, including retail, fitness, and lobby space. Some parking, again, interior to the structure, and a portion of parking along Front Street. Second floor of the buildings contain a mixture of parking and, again, some active spaces, mostly open to the story below for that 2-story active space, and then the parking in the building on the south half of the block. Moving up, the project has a courtyard on top of the second floor interior to the structure. In the alley, there are 2 pedestrian sky bridges which connect the 2 buildings across that alley, and then residential units. And then continuing up to the 7th floor, there is residential units proposed. Cross-section shows the alley, the subgrade parking, and then the fitness on this view. Of course, the project has those active uses that wrap the street frontages, so this section doesn't fully capture what those ground floor uses are. The proposed building, and this is the Grove Street elevation. It features articulation, balconies, fenestration as required through the design guidelines, a prominent cornice, and weather protection is included on all elevations of the building. To provide that pedestrian scale and the weather protection for the street level. Streetscape improvements have been proposed on all street frontages as required. In this view here, you can see the alley between the 2 buildings with the 2 sky bridges extending across. The Front Street elevation, again, there's some exposed parking, but it has been screened from Front Street. We have the ground level canopies for that pedestrian level interest with some balconies and some recesses in the building to provide that articulation as well. Moving to the final elevation on 13th Street, they have addressed the corner of 13th in front with a chamfer to the building. It is identified in the downtown design guidelines as a prominent intersection deserving special attention. So some pedestrian space there at the corner with the chamfer to the building has been provided. And then again, those active uses along the street facades. In the project report, staff has recommended approval. The applicant is in agreement with the conditions with one late very minor adjustment to condition 1F, and that is that access aisles for single ADA spaces within the garage shall be located on the right side of the parking space with the addition of the word single. Beyond that, the applicant is here, has a presentation ready, and I would stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this time from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Is the applicant present? If you would you like to come forward and present? If you would please state your name and address for the record. And you have 20 minutes.
Well, thank you, members of the council. I'm Chad Lorenz with Herbal Architecture, 1938 Fairview Avenue East, Suite 100, Seattle, Washington, 98102. Thanks for having us today. We are in agreement with all the conditions, as Josh mentioned. Thank you, Josh, for the presentation. I'm going to keep it really brief tonight just because we are in agreement, but we do have some jazzed up renderings to show you that better reflect, I think, what we're proposing here. So I want to first introduce Alliance Residential is here. They're the developers. We also have our landscape architect, Rob Fazio and Associates, and Land Groups are civil, if there's any questions on those specific disciplines. Next slide. Important. So next slide. So this is a Class A residential development for our Alliance. We really feel this is a very special site within kind of the West Downtown. We're really excited about what's being proposed for the Linden District and the Grove Street improvement, and really can't wait to see that develop in the next years. We really wanted with the architecture to pay homage to the classical brick buildings that you have here, and maybe put a little modern twist on it. Next slide. So it really starts with the streets, and we were first visited this site. It's quite amazing actually standing on the site and seeing the differences that you feel on Front Street, on Grove, 12th and 13th. So let me just give you a little description. Grove Street, as I mentioned before, a lot's going to happen there. It really kind of is the pedestrian bike connection, east-west. The traffic is kept to a minimum, but there is good traffic access along Grove Street. As you turn the corner to 12th, much quieter street, kind of the second pedestrian route. Just kind of a nice place between some retail spaces to kind of congregate. 13th, on the other hand, is kind of a transitional street. There's two northbound lanes, which really kind of the north traffic flow off of the highway. On the corner is a car wash. And if you ever stood on there, they have the blowers blowing most of the day. It is very loud there. So it affects a little bit of how we were thinking of it. And then Front Street, which is really the main arterial out of downtown. And we are sort of the last stoplight there before you hit the interstate. And the cars just start going, and it's very loud and somewhat inhospitable to any sort of retail and even pedestrian activity. If you look at the hotel across the street, they've actually put a continuous concrete planter to kind of shield their building and pedestrians from it. So next slide. I'm going to gloss over this, but there's 85-page document that talks about all the work that's gone into the Grove Street improvement. We're really excited about it. On our site, between 12th and 13th, there's a place for spill-out dining. There's a bike path separated with a planting strip, some buffers, parking. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Across the street, a parklet is being introduced. So we really want to add to that streetscape on the Grove Street and find a really important street to kind of front. Next. So this is, you saw on Josh's slide, but you can actually read the text. So our assessment and kind of program was laid out such the lobby and the focal point of the building really is along Grove Street. So we put a lot of the activity there for the residents. The main retail space on the corner, as noted, it's restaurant ready. Lots of opportunity there for that and greeting people, moving into the Linden District from downtown. As you move down 12th, that's where we place more retail. Again, that was more pedestrian street, quieter, very appropriate for smaller scale retail along that street. Wrapping around 13th, I said transitional, much more traffic. We actually put internal activity on that side, fitness, a bike shop, bike storage, where people would see activity, but wouldn't necessarily have activity spilling out onto the sidewalks. And then Front Street, we've wrapped the corners and really tried to make that kind of transition, but have some parking, as Josh noted, on that street. Next. So we are considered a gateway corner on the corner of 13th and Front. And so to pay tribute to that, it wasn't really, it's really mainly traffic bound. So we put a secondary sign. We have Chamford Corner. We're kind of dressing it up. We have a lot of the brick details showing there. We are trying also at night to bring in this kind of a highlight of some of the brick items in it, so that when people come in from downtown, they see a very kind of nice sort of entrance, and we hope that it really sort of serves as a kind of a bar to the rest of this district as it continues to develop. Next. The alley, definitely, you guys have alleys in Boise. A lot of them are purely for service. They become, places to put dumpsters and can be unsightly. And we want to kind of discourage that, though we do take our services off of the alley. We have our garage entry. We have some parking there. But what's really interesting about the alley, and you can see in more detail here, is we have our courtyard looking down into it. It actually splits our courtyard. As Josh mentioned, we have two bridges that cross, which are actually open, so people will see down into it. And if you see adjacent to the alley, to get into the courtyard, we have some access points. So we're encouraging residents to literally walk along the alley so that there's activity, both looking down from below or down from above, and looking up, you'll be able to see activity as well. So we're really trying to do something to make sure that this alley doesn't become a blight within the middle of the building. Next slide. This is an image looking down there. As you can see on 12th Street, the retail flanks it, and it actually turns the corner. So there's windows, there's light, there's eyes on the alley as you even transition into that alley space. Next. So our inspiration was, as I said, the kind of classical buildings that have stood the test of time here. We studied the proportions, kind of how they're broken up, but they have a very kind of simple facade to them. And, I think it really gives them a timeless quality and good details to observe. So next slide. So materials, predominantly it's a brick building. We use kind of a warmer, light brick. And then we contrast that with some light stucco, which, complements the brick. We have black windows, which provide contrast on the upper levels from the lighter material. As you move down to the base, you get the dark storefronts in it, which kind of differentiates it. We also have some darker components there to kind of offset the light upper levels. Decks provide some modulation, also outdoor space for the residents. And then we have decorative louvers, which are those stripes in there, which kind of hide all the ventilation and stuff, which is prevalent in buildings like this. Next slide. So if you zoom into the details, there is a lot more, and a lot more than even this rendering shows. But first and foremost, we're trying to capture sort of a base and a middle and a top to the building. The top has signage. There's a strong cornice with profiled brick components. We've got arches. We've got deep inset to the building, so there's depth to it. The pilasters that you see actually have indentations of brick there, so they're not just flat. They actually have a little recess in there, create some shadow lines, as do all the brick columns have a little shadow line. We're proposing lighting on here so that at night this thing really glows and really creates has a presence at all times of day. We just really have put a lot of time and effort into the details of this building. Next slide. This is just, again, the front street facade. We have a double height lobby. There's a canopy, a big canopy up front, big doors. So this is meant to, the interior will reflect the exterior. So when you come in, this is going to be like kind of a classic hotel look, but a very, nice residential building for the residents. Next slide. Again, the alley, not much more to say about that, but just wanted to give you another look at it with the kind of streetscape and the depth. There's actually a 2-foot recess in those brick columns there that sort of provide differentiation depth where it comes out at the corner. It's recessed slightly in between. Next, the gateway corner once more. And then last slide. This is the final elevation. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. If there's any questions, we have a team to answer them for you.
Great. Thank you very much. Questions for the applicant from the committee at this time?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Sid.
From your original application, when this was a single building with a fully enclosed courtyard, and there was talk about abandoning the alley, what drove the decision to switch over to 2 buildings? I imagine you're leaving, I don't know, 24 to 30 units on the table. And I thought that the fully enclosed courtyard was rather compelling.
Mm-hmm.
Was there trouble with ACHD, or what moved you away from that decision?
Josh, I think that would be one for him to handle. I don't want to get in trouble here.
Mr. Chairman, Committee Member Erstad, there were extensive conversations between the city and the applicant in terms of preserving the alley. We do have a deep desire in downtown Boise to preserve alleys where they are present. They provide a number of opportunities to take services off of the streets and keep them in the alleys and break down our blocks into a scale that you'd see in downtown Boise with blocks bifurcated by an alley, two separate buildings, and kind of break down that massing. So that was at the urging of the city.
Okay. Other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Ms. Echo.
Josh, hi. I'm assuming that you had some issues with Idaho Power as well for the alley, because it seems like that's been problematic downtown, getting those power lines relocated.
Mr. Chairman, Committee Member Aguilar, I'll let the applicant address that. They have been working with Idaho Power on where that transformer is located and those issues. So I'll let them address that.
And Alex Delzell with Herbal Architecture. No, we actually had worked through all of the utility relocation, and there wasn't any complications with that. It was purely comprehensive planning. It's a desire to maintain the alley.
Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Stan.
I assume it's just the nature of renderings based off of a computerized model, but it looks like some of your cornices, particularly on the facade that we're seeing right here on that, the lower level cornice, they kind of just cut off at some of these columns rather than returning, but others do return back into the face behind. Is that just the nature of a computer model, or is there a
It's a
reason?
rendering issue.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll return. I see that. I never even noticed that. That's good. Yeah, so the brick will return back to there.
I guess one other question I have would just be kind of the rationale behind the placement of some of your awnings. I can't see them necessarily correlating to any specific condition. I mean, along this facade, you've got pretty much every module with an awning, and then some of your others, some modules within a specific condition have them, but others do not. And
Sure. Yeah, so I think when we, looking at prioritizing awnings, now the city has a requirement for how many percent? 50% awnings on all the facades. So obviously on the Grove Street facade where we have retail, continuous. 12th, we've got them where the retail spaces are located and pedestrians are likely to congregate. On the other two facades, I mean, we're really in some ways sort of discouraging pedestrian activity since we'd rather push people onto Grove. But we still need to maintain the 50% requirement on the front street side. So that's why they're a little haphazardly placed, trying to kind of create some interest, but they're certainly not there for any particular reason except code.
thank you.
Any others, questions?
Chair.
Yes.
So Ben, on committee member Semple online here. Sorry, I couldn't make it down there tonight. I had a question about the garage screening that you have on the front street facade. Can you talk a little bit about what materials that is and just kind of the how that ties into the rest of the facade?
Sure. It's a laser cut metal screen, and it's got sort of a we're kind of mimicking the divided light windows that you see at the lobby space with a kind of welded wire mesh between them of a certain gauge. We've found in other ones when you don't have a kind of a beefy enough sort of metal that, believe it or not, people will cut through your screens and go steal bikes and various things in there. So we're trying to get a tight kind of weave to these and enough sort of gauge in order to deter people from getting in there. But they're really meant to kind of mimic the if you can go to the last slide, see the front door where you have the divided light doors and stuff. That's kind of the vocabulary that's being carried around that front street side. So
Thank
looks
you.
like a classic window.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we do have one sign in on the sign up sheet. Alex Vega, is it? Alex, if you want to come forward, please. Would just for the record again, please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, hi, I am Alex Vega and email address.
Just your physical address.
Oh, okay. 2723 West Idaho Street is my home address, but I actually currently occupy the building that is where this building is going to be proposed, and my building is set to be demolished. And it just really is kind of sad because I don't know where I'll go after that. And there's a lot of things that I do out of this facility. I'm an artist. I build and stretch canvases. I paint murals. I do custom sign work, and I'm a father, and this is the way I provide for my kids. And I just don't know where I would go. So I just hope that when any decisions come across, that I'll have ample time to kind of organize my things. And it'd be really nice if I got one of those retail spots in the corner. I know that's kind of a long shot, but I'll stick the stuff in storage in the meantime. But I do host a lot of public things. I host paint parties, and I run and teach those paint and sip paint parties, which people really love. And I just, kind of want to address that and, bring that up, that just hopefully there's some other options that can be presented by the developers, or maybe there's some other location or some other warehouse or something like that that they can, think about sticking us. But I just really hope that I have enough time to move somewhere else, that it's not going to be like, okay, we're going to knock the building down in 10 days. You have 10 days to get 10 years worth of stuff out of there. So, but yeah, thank you.
Okay.
It's as much as I have. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to testify tonight, either in person here or online? Seeing none, would the applicant like any last statements or rebuttal? None? Okay. Well, with that, we'll close the public portion of the testimony and bring it back to the committee for discussion and a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I know we're discussing the project as it's been presented today, but I can't help but think that in a city that has repeatedly stressed the need for more housing, the priority of a secondary or tertiary circulatory space is preempting the potential for more housing units. And we've got all these design guidelines in place to address precisely the issue that's been cited tonight, as far as breaking up the scale of the block and making it feel more pedestrian friendly. I think that the direction that's been given and the reworking that's been done is it's counterproductive to some of the larger objectives that we have as a community. And I feel like I would be remiss to not bring that up. I know that we can't necessarily stipulate that months of work be undone and we go back to a design that was not actually communicated tonight, but I just need to get that out there.
Other comments? Anybody want to take a stab at a motion? while we ponder. I guess understand your comments, Mr. Stad. I know city obviously also is concerned about super blocks in the city of Boise with developments that are, the view corridors down some of these alleys actually can be kind of nice. And I think got to applaud those that take the design time to make an alley a special place as well. So kind of both ways I can see where this ended up the way it did. So still open for a motion if anybody's willing to take a stab at it.
Mr.
Go
Chair.
ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Stitt.
I move to approve DRH 21-00448, subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report.
So moved, Mr. Stead.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
prior to a second on that, would you include that modification on item F that they showed us early on to make sure that gets put in the record?
I would approve that.
Okay, so moved.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Rudine. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Christine, will you please call the roll?
Simple,
Aye.
DeBala,
Aye.
Udine,
Aye.
Marsh,
Aye.
Aguilar,
Aye.
Erstad,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next item we'll hear tonight is item number 5. It's DRH 22-00074. The location is 8675 South Warehouse Way and 2392 East Winco Court. And with this, we'll turn it over to staff for their presentation. Caitlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. This project is located off Winco Court on the east side of Eisenman Road. The Blue Valley community is located to the north, and the Winco Distribution Center is located to the south. The zoning is M2D, heavy industrial with design review, and the land use designation is industrial in the comprehensive plan. The applicant is proposing 7 spec industrial warehouse buildings totaling approximately 1.2 million square feet. The applicant will be constructing Winco Court from the southeast toward the northwest of the site and will construct Warehouse Way within the existing right-of-way on the west. Building A, the building closest to Blue Valley, has been oriented so that the truck docks are on the opposite side from Blue Valley. And the applicant is also proposing a landscape buffer along Building A. Here is the proposed buffer in plan view. It's approximately 50 feet from the parking edge to the property line. And that's easier to see in a section. So adjacent to Blue Valley, there would be a 50-foot wide landscape buffer consisting of a fence, which the applicant has indicated might be a 4-foot tall split rail fence with a 10-foot grass buffer with drainage, and then a 40-foot wide terraced berm with a mix of evergreen and deciduous trees. And the berm would be at least 4 feet tall on the parking side, which could screen the vehicle headlights. And then there's also no truck docks on that side. So that would be the employee and visitor parking. And then the building is approximately 120 feet from the north property line. In order to have a measurable requirement for the trees, staff has recommended a condition for the buffer, that the buffer must have alternating double row of trees, and then each row would be planted no farther than 80% of their mature width. And then the applicant would also be required to complete that buffer prior to occupancy of any of the buildings. And then to further mitigate impacts to the Blue Valley residents on the west, staff recommended a condition that the landscape buffer also continue along the remaining north property line on the west side. So you can see this is the proposed buffer with the trees. And then on the west side, staff recommends that a buffer also be provided on that side. And on this context, you can kind of see that this area adjacent to the west will still be visible from some of the residents. So this is a kind of a zoomed in view of that area adjacent to building G on the west. So the applicant was willing to provide a buffer in that area, but they wished that it would allow flexibility around some existing easements that they have that preclude trees. And they would like that buffer to not include the berm. We did receive many concerns regarding traffic, especially along Eisenman Road. The applicant did have a traffic impact study completed, which was reviewed and accepted by the Ada County Highway District. This project doesn't have any frontage on Eisenman, but Winco Court and Freight do come off of Eisenman. Based on the traffic study and ACHD policy, the applicant is going to install northbound center left turn lanes on the intersections of Eisenman Road and Freight Street and Eisenman Road and Winco Court. So at those yellow circles. And then based on trips generated, the applicant is not required to widen Eisenman Road. Eisenman Road is planned to be widened in the future. I think ACHD has it planned between 2036 and 2040. So that is a ways out yet. And then I do have a list of all the conditions available if we want to look through them. We are recommending a modified condition A, and that would read, comply with all Ada County Highway District requirements, construct the Winco Court extension to ACHD's industrial street section standard with a minimum 50 feet of right-of-way for public street dedication of the Winco Court extension, which will require a subdivision application. Prior to dedication of the Winco Court extension, building permits for warehouse structures may be approved, provided that no inspections for occupancy will be performed for any warehouse structure until the Winco Court extension is dedicated and all ACHD impact fees are paid. Coordinate the location of the warehouse by temporary turnaround at the City of Boise and the ACHD. And that is just to clarify and give ACHD some certainty on their requirements as well. And with that, the applicant is available to give a presentation unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Caitlin. Questions for staff at this time from the committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. Zabala.
Caitlin, this modified condition A, one of the projects that we saw or on our part of the agenda is on an adjoining site of this. Was there not also a condition like this on theirs, and that's just whoever gets there first? Okay, very good.
That's correct.
Thank you. Other questions for staff?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Aguilar.
Caitlin, what's happening at the end of Warehouse Way where it abuts the neighbors there? Is it going to be terminated there, or is it going to go through? I'm concerned about traffic cutting through the subdivision there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Committee Member Aguilar, for now, the applicant would be required to construct a turnaround on their property. Eventually, that road we would anticipate being extended, but we don't know when that would be. So there would be a sign that would say, ACHD usually requires a sign that says that this street will be extended in the future, but for now, the applicant would be constructing a temporary turnaround.
Thank you.
Other questions?
On that same line of Commissioner Aguilar's, condition G of the staff report talks about continuing the 50-foot wide landscape buffer and fence up on that Warehouse Way extension. Is that the extension going on the land adjacent to the residential area? Is that what we're talking about? If you go back to.
Yeah, the intent would be that the landscape buffer would be continued on the west side of the extension. So here's where that extension is. So everywhere on the west would also be included in that buffer area.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions for staff? See none at the applicant presence. Hi, would you like to come up and present anything? If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Chair Marsh, members of the design committee. My name is Michael Chen, Associate Principal with McKinsey. Address 500 Union Street, Suite 410, Seattle, Washington, 98101. I'd like to also thank staff for working with us this evening. I have myself here as well as Trevor Neville with Lincoln Property Company and Deborah Nelson with Givens Percy LLP, as well as other Patrick Gilligan from Lincoln Property Company, Scott Moore, my colleague from McKinsey, and Jordan Sheets with Kimley Horn. They're attending virtually this evening. Just to give you a little bit of the site and the context, as Caitlin had mentioned, we are bound by Blue Valley to the north, Winco to the south, Osmond to the east, and vacant property and railroad to the west. Next slide. And I wanted to give you all a little history about the site. We started working with Lincoln Property Company last summer. This is the initial site plan. As you could see, it shows 4 larger warehouse buildings. The smallest was about 196,000 square feet. And building A was a double dock configured building, cross dock configured building. This provided about 1.4 million square feet of warehouse. And as you can see, 4 large buildings, it's a lot more efficient to construct. But since then, we've worked and met with the neighbors of Blue Valley. There was a meeting in November, another one in February of this year, and several virtual and in-person meetings with the neighborhood association. Next. And this is the site plan before you. So we've taken a lot of feedback from both the neighbors and Lincoln Properties, and we've refined the building so that you have a total of 1.2 million square feet. So there's a loss of 200,000 square feet overall, less building coverage. Smaller buildings, the smallest building, building F, is approximately 37,000 square feet. And building A, I forgot to mention on the previous iteration, the initial one, was over 500,000 square feet. It's been reduced to about 337 or about 370,000 square feet. So the scale of building A has gotten tremendously smaller. We've turned away the docks to the south and added the berm. Next slide. As Caitlin mentioned, the road improvements that ACHD has approved the TIS right there at Winco and Freight. Next. I wanted to speak a little bit about the landscape plan. So as staff had presented, the berm itself, and there's a cross section on the next slide, but I wanted to address the condition about extending the landscape buffer to the west of Warehouse Way. As you can see here, we have a revised exhibit that extends that landscape berm. It's about 40 feet wide, but it doesn't continue further west past building G. The main reason is there's a sanitary sewer line there, as well as a gas line. So those utilities would prohibit us from planting significant trees, double road trees there. But if the intent is to screen building G to the northeast, the proposed landscape plan that you have here in front of you does that. We're planning to plant double rows of landscaping, and then there'll probably be some additional landscaping adjacent to the building as well. So wanted to speak about the actual buffer. As you can see, it spans the entire length of building A. I wanted to give you a little profile. The cross section on the next slide and the ones you've seen basically take it right through where it says section L1. The middle of the site is the highest point. And then as you go east and west, the topography drops off. So the berm is actually going to be higher and larger as it spans to the east and the west. We have to set an elevation for building A, and just the natural topography, we're trying to cut and balance and fill the site to reduce, import and exporting. But so just wanted to let you know that just that one section just shows you sort of like the lowest portion of the berm, and then it'll just get larger as you go east and west. Next. And that this is similar to what staff had presented. A 4-foot berm on the warehouse side that'll screen the land or the headlights from vehicles, and then the split rail fence along the property line is proposed as a 4-foot. Staff report had it noted as 6. It's difficult to construct a 6-foot split rail fence. The designers came up with split rail just so that it helps soften the feel between properties, and it's not a large, chain link fence that's not as, aesthetically pleasing to the neighbors, and as well as the tenants and the owners of the warehouse probably won't even see that because it'll be screened by landscaping and they'll be higher. So next. I wanted to speak a little bit about the materials. The buildings will be, tilt concrete, and there's a lot we could do with tilt scoring lines, and that's what you have here, as well as colors. So the highest building is about 40 foot, and that provides approximately 36 foot clear on the inside of the warehouse. There's going to be additional, windows and glazing aluminum storefronts at the building entries on office nodes, and then in your packet, you've seen the whole elevation of building A. It's broken up. We don't have any blank walls. We're trying to break up the warehouses because we want them to look good so that tenants will, be proud of occupying those. Next. And that's all I have for my presentation. Our team is here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Questions for the applicant from the committee at this point?
Mr. Chairman. Oh.
Yep, Mr. Simple online. Go ahead.
I had just a quick question. So other than the slight modification to the extension of the landscape buffer along the west side of the property on the north, you're in agreement with all the conditions of approval in the staff report?
Yes, that's correct.
And then when you talk about the height of the berm there from the Blue Valley side, what's the approximate height of that berm from that elevation up to the top of that, even at the lowest point? I know you can't, it's going to change, but do you have an idea of that height?
Yeah, it's approximate based on the scale of this. It's approximately 12 feet. I know we have Jordan Sheets, our civil engineer from Kilmary Horn on. He could also confirm.
Okay. Yeah, I think I just wanted to get an idea of kind of the general height at the low point, because you're saying this is the lowest that berm would be along the whole north property line along building A.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that last question that my colleague had. My question was going to be, what is the approximate grade change from finished grade on Blue Valley side versus a finished grade on the proposed parking side? So you're saying that's 12 feet?
Yeah, that's 12 feet there. And then Jordan, if you could give the number of what the grade change would be on both east and west sides. I've heard different, numbers, but I don't want to speak incorrectly.
Can you hear me, Michael?
Yep.
Okay. So the grade changes, like Michael said, the middle of building A is the shallowest part. And as you go east and west, it gets steeper. The part that is the biggest elevation difference is on the northeast corner of the site itself. And in that corner, we have approximately the building A, you're 10 feet, you're about 10 feet, 10, 12 feet, like Michael said, in that area, just kind of as it varies. But as it's been stated before, there is going to be a 4-foot berm on the parking lot side. So, when you look at finished grade of the parking lot compared to the residence, we'll go up and then we'll come back down slightly to the parking lot grade. Does that answer your question, Chairman?
Thank you.
Great.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Stead.
I realize that this is probably not the exact moment that I should be doing this, but I kind of let things move forward too quickly. I've spoken with legal prior to this meeting, and I have a tangential but closely tied enough conflict that I will recuse myself from this discussion any further.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stead. Other questions from the committee to the applicant at the moment? Seeing none, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there a representative from the neighborhood association here? Yes, if you would please come up, state your name and address for the record as well.
Good evening, Mr. President and council members. Here we are again. My name is Bonnie Hardy. I reside at 8301 Blue Heaven Lane, Boise, Idaho, 83716. So the first, there's my tech guy. We're going to discuss the zoning because that was a big issue the last time we had a proposed bill next to us. And definitely at the end of the land deal with our other proposal to the north of us, we were assured that we would be protected and that they would make sure whatever goes next to us is appropriate. Well, when we look up M2, it definitely doesn't need much interpretation when it says it should be separated from residential development. And we are a land use residential development, which ACHD failed to put on for land use, but we are that. So we really have some contention with that. During our meeting with the Lincoln Properties, we addressed that concern to them, saying we don't feel protected because if you have M2, you have some shelled out buildings. What's going to prevent you from doing manufacturing? Because I found one of their permits where they had number 3 as being manufacturing. So we are in a position where we definitely don't agree to the M2 situation. And we know another residential area that is southwest of us. They were just recently fighting the same type of thing, industrial next to residential. So I think this is a problem that definitely needs to be addressed through how they fill out the application when they say what's on the east, west, south. We should be put in as a residential development. That way it's not so quick to take the pen and paper and say everything looks good until we know we're residential. Next slide. So the zoning, I noticed there was some documentation where it said, hey, you guys have always been industrial. What's the problem? Well, this shows you did a little research, and in 1978, we were actually agricultural A2. Some of the residents I spoke with said they had a little jam jar. They would just put their extra change in and that would pay for their property tax. And then they were progressed the G1, and that was by Ada County. And if you notice, the property to the south of us was M1. How it became M2, I don't know, but it has always been M1 as far as we know. And so we became, there's AP, that was the first, that was in 98 that we were AP. So in 2013, we were annexed into the city. It was a forced annexation where they had built out Winco and all the properties are to the south of us. And they had an annexation where they took in 1,096 acres. There were 93 residents that were affected. And I read the paperwork from the commissioners meeting at that time. and only 3 people out of 93 affected households showed up to testify. One of the commissioners questioned had it been properly notified to everyone because he found it strange that these large landowners, only out of 93, only 3 would show up. And then when you investigate further, 99 was the magic number that they couldn't exceed and force annexation on these people. So they were forced annexed. The city said they gave a comparable zoning for Blue Valley, and they made it light industrial. And so that's how we became light industrial. We do have a conditional use permit that was permitted back in 1978 under Ada County, and it's a conditional use permit. They say we're non-conforming land, but we are a usage that is being used by that cup that is legal and grandfathered in. So zoning is a big issue, and I know you folks can't take care of that. I just want it on the record saying we probably wouldn't be here right now if it were. Okay, next slide. And here's a familiar slide. This is where we got the assumption that we were protected, that we would never have a building of 1.3 million square feet. I think that qualifies for a little more than a M1. Here we go.
If you have an opportunity to make right what wasn't, we in government ought to take that opportunity.
So basically, this was when we did the land swap. Mayor Beater at the time told us, he said, government has failed these people somehow. It wasn't the city who did this, but we have the opportunity to make right what was wrong. And so at that point, we thought, well, we're not going to have to contend with this anymore. We accept building. We just don't want to accept something that could turn into manufacturing. You know, we'd love some condo, what are they called, storage units? But so that's that. Go to the next slide. And this is a biggie. We did meet with Lincoln Properties, and we thought, hey, this would be great. We're having a neighborhood meeting before we get in here. We can work everything out. And it seemed, oh, this is the residential. I'm sorry, I have to back up. I forgot. I went to the current rezoning committee meeting, the engagement meeting where they were talking to all the people. And during that zoning meeting, I said, this is residential. I said, but you don't mention manufactured housing. Where does that fit in? They go, oh, you're in here. You're in residential. And I thought, good, we're protected. No, we weren't. Okay, next slide. So anyway, when we met with Lincoln Properties, they had shown us a rendition of the different buildings that were going to be built. Building A, which is adjacent to our property, was emphasized. It was very large, it looked great, and we're going to provide you a buffer, 120 feet. And I said, well, how close is it going to be to the homes? Well, we're going to be across the fire break, which was a pretty good distance. Well, yesterday, I saw the survey, and I have pictures of it, I'll show you later, where it's within maybe 8 feet of a home. And there's a few sheds that are going to have to be knocked down, some fences to accommodate this. So we were misled on that. So we got to thinking, what else is wrong? So a construction person stood up in the meeting and he said, you know what? I've got some concerns out there. You talk about how the property goes high in the middle. And he goes, I'm in construction and that's basalt out there. You're not going to get through it unless you dynamite it. And he said, that's a major excavation. And that was never brought forth until that man stood up during the committee meeting and mentioned it. I had emailed Trevor Nickel and I expressed my concerns saying, I'm concerned about this, blasting because Gowan Road underpass there, they had quite a bit of dynamite blasting. And I said, here you are right next to a residential. And I said, have you had any geological reports or anything like that done? And he said, well, we have a very good team that, and I'm just paraphrasing, very good team that's versed in that. And I said, well, do you have the report? And who are they? And he said, well, we haven't hired them yet. And so we're getting all this dropout information. The first part that was conveyed to us, we were like, yay, we're not going to have to go through this. So next slide. This is what's underneath that scant layer of soil. My husband put in 2 trees for me, bless his heart. He had to go rent a jackhammer to put those in. So it's obvious excavating is a major thing. How are you going to determine grade if you're not excavating for that building? And later, this was also something that threw us through a loop. They said, well, building A isn't going to be built first. And we were like, wait a minute, you sold building A as it's going to be a buffer. We switched around the semi-truck bays, gave you passenger. Now there's nothing there. And now that, if I'm hearing right, they're proposing that the berm be built when building A is built. And I was told by Trevor again, he goes, well, because that wasn't forthcoming until I asked, hey, what building's being built first? And he pointed out all the other ones, but not A. And he said, we might not even build that. So I'm like, so why were you talking about all this protection we were going to have and how you so nicely switched the parking lot to even give us more transition when the 3 other major buildings you're putting up are going to have their docking semi-trucks facing us. And it's very calm and quiet out there. Noise carries. This is a picture where I took, they finally did a survey. I noticed this 2 days ago. So these little flags, that little bit of dirt road you see behind the tree. Now, they told us it would be on the other side of that is where the berm would start. And I said, have you surveyed it? And they said, no, we haven't. And I go, well, how do you know where it's at? And I said, we can't approve this unless we need to see some figures. And I went out there myself and we took pictures yesterday. And the red flag shows where the property line is, their property line. So I'm assuming the berm's going to go up there. And another thing, in their report, they said they weren't taking down trees. Well, you see a tree over there in their property and there's other ones too. Next slide. There again, there's the property going by the electrical and by a tree. This will go through someone's yard and through their shed. Now here's the rendition they gave us. Anybody looking at that would say, wow, building A is the one that's going to be built first. It's A, it's big, that's all they're talking about. And then we're thrown a loop saying, hey, but it's not being built first. Then we don't get a berm. What do we get? We get the buildings behind with all the docks facing us. We get property. If you see this, where the yellow line is, how close it gets to the manufactured homes. Plus, you're going to have blasting, excavation, heavy excavation, and not knowing where that grade line is going to be. I mean, when they talk about a height of 42, does that include that grade that is so much higher than our property? And when I look up grading and requirements out of Chapter 9, it says if you're grading next to an adjacent property, that it should be at the same level as that property. Now the berm is excusable, but beyond that berm, for that, it just makes that building taller because the grade is taller than our grade. Then the rendition there just shows all trees. You don't see a parking lot. The 4-foot fence isn't going to cover the headlights of those trucks. And next slide. So this is the berm also, and that they're showing a pathway and these fully developed trees. You really don't even see that building back there. So they were well done. A lot of people felt left down. We felt like we couldn't work with them any longer because we weren't given all the facts so we could actually look and see if that's for our best interest or not. Erosion, which we have another lady who's going to speak specifically about it. It's a big problem out there. It's clay. It has no absorption. Then you're going to put pavement down and brick buildings and even take more of the space. Next one. And like I said, when you see building G over there, it's going to be built. And the lights are going to go behind there. The road goes there. You'll see all the lighting going through there. The building in front where it says first when it be built, it'll be there. But there's not going to be any grading or anything by us. We're not going to have any protection, and there's no timeline when they're going to provide this wonderful barrier they were making for us. And I had the same concerns too. This was the first one they showed us. It's a bit different than the one they showed you tonight. We weren't privy to that. But you could see here how they showed the person and this berm and wow, you don't even see that warehouse. I think this is misleading and there's no scale. So I'm not a construction person, but common sense kind of tells me that doesn't look just quite right. And you know, this is the problem out here. This is our road that doesn't need to be improved till 2036. This is what our kids have to walk on to get this to the school bus every day. And when there's snow there, there's no place to walk. That is an unusable shoulder. They continue to build out in Gate West URD without any concern for the infrastructure, without making sidewalks. They said again, they were going to give us a sidewalk. They said that in 2018. So I'll believe it when I see it. Next slide. So here's a good shot with Linda Puccelli took. This is what they get off of the bus. Look at the semi truck. He has to pass through a double line to get away. In front of him is another dip. What happens when another semi is coming up? He's on that side. Where's he going to go? This is dangerous, and they need to stop this intense building without infrastructure and regard for pedestrians. You force them to be in an unsafe place. Video. Oops. No, the video. It didn't come up. Oh, shoot. So we're trying to find solutions. Of course, our solution is it shouldn't be that large. We know something's going to be there, but we'd like to have a little more say and make it a little more fitting. So some of the suggestions we brought up were making the traffic so it doesn't go in front of Blue Valley. So that would mean everything south of Blue Sage Road, if the trucks are coming out, they could only take a right-hand turn if they were on the right-hand side of the road facing south, or a left-hand turn if they were on the left side of the road facing south. There's a wonderful Mr. Gas there. There's a freeway entrance exit there that Micron had built when they first put in, never used. And then that way all the traffic south of Blue Sage would go the other direction. They wouldn't pass in front of us. Now on the other side, past Blue Lake, if they would do the same thing there, it would make them go to Cowan. That would give us a nice split and cut down on a lot of the traffic. When they said their traffic studies were within range, no, They were 4,175 trips. They got a variance because they said they would have seasonal workers there. So they got a variance. And Amazon got a variance. They were close to 5,000. They got the same variance, the same guy who did the traffic report, and they were allowed to operate with that reasoning. So instead of looking at the entire build out that they're doing there, they're taking individual warehouses and okaying all this, but they don't okay safety for our people. I'll be quick. Is that the last one? Okay. Thank goodness, right? Anyway, so naturally we oppose this, and safety, well-being, and health are differently issues. And it says straight in your definitions of what is appropriate near residential. And M2, what they're proposing, doesn't fit. And we hope the commission would look further into this and see what can be done about it. We're expecting a build, but nothing like this. Thank you.
Thank you
We
very
have
much.
someone else talking on erosion, but she's a 3-minute talker.
All right, thank you very much. We do have a sign up sheet, so we're just going to go order of the folks that signed up on the sign up. First is Sue Collins. Who would state your name and address?
Sue Collins, 2199 Blue Lake Lane, Boise. I live in Blue Lake Valley Manufactured Mobile Home Park on Blue Lake Lane. Some of my neighbors in the street are retired, others are workers, family, disabled, active, just your typical Idaho neighborhoods. But we have something very, very special. We have a quiet sanctuary called Lake Patricia. The minute that I saw the photos of the Blue Lake property that was listed, I knew it was where I wanted to retire. So I purchased my home on this lake. From the back of my deck, I've photographed an abundance of birds, small animals, and waterfowl coexisting with the residentials. Last year, I had the pleasure to watch a blue heron move around Patricia Lake every day. This year, we have 2 herons. More rare, we have witnessed migrating Canadian swans, havasets, a flock of protected curlews that took refuge here. Last fall, we observed a pelican here for 3 to 4 months recovering from an injury. Recently, I filmed a family of geese in my backyard with 14 goslings and some turkey vultures. The trees and the bushes are full of quails and all types of varieties of birds that I don't even know yet. At night, we do hear the hum of the freeway, but it's balanced by the calming sounds of the fountain water, the geese, the ducks, and the coyote calls. The surrounding desert always surprises us with creatures in our yards like raccoons, badgers, snakes, and more. This is our way of life for over 50 years. I've submitted a list of over 100 varieties of wildlife that I've been photographing at Blue Valley. And I'm begun logging them on the Observation of Idaho Fish and Game Wildlife website. The state of Idaho has many studies, including the Big Sky Neighborhood District findings that support the preservation and management of Idaho wildlife on how to protect fish and wildlife, specifically for the great blue heron and waterfowl habitats in particular. This is cited in detail on the Boise River Wetland Riparian Habit Key Issues and Solutions report. It also states that Idaho has already lost half of its historic wetland extent, mainly due to drainage, filling, land clearing, and conversion to cropland or business. This project seems to be a continuation of that process, encroaching wildlife and species habitat. The main concern with the Lincoln project for me is the impacts to the environmental and wildlife from blasting, construction, traffic, noise, and other concerns stated by our neighborhood residents that could destroy this beautiful preserve. Over 1 million square feet of industrial is planned to be built 20, 50, right in our backyards in this residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Linda Puccinelli. Thank you. You would just state your address too for the record.
Sure. Linda Puccinelli, 2247 Blue Lake Lane. As stated earlier, Lake Patricia is a vital and environmentally rich habitat for numerous wildlife. The lake was created within Blue Lake Residential Park around 50 years ago with a depth of 8 to 10 feet prior to any major commercial development and arbitrary rezoning changes from agricultural to industrial. As of a month ago, a technician installing a repaired fountain in the middle of the lake estimated the lake to be now only 5 feet deep. Over a period of time, rainwater, along with sediment and debris that flows directly into the 5 Mile Creek, has made the lake noticeably shallower. Much of the neighboring land is being covered by hard surfaces of large buildings with extensive parking areas. The rainwater running off of it takes contaminants into our lake. This leads to a major algae buildup in the summer, which in turn leads to very smelly, unhealthy, and sometimes deadly environment for fish due to lack of oxygen. This then can lead to a diminished food source for many of the park's wildlife inhabitants. Several years ago, the park owner spent tens of thousands of dollars to help control the increasing flow of sediment into the lake. My husband and I have personally, in the last year, invested up to $3,000 on products to help control the toxic algae buildup that has increased during the decreased water depth. These are some slides that I just took after the recent rains, and it shows that it goes from the front where the Lincoln property is going to be, and the slides will show as it moves toward our manufactured home park, and as it actually crosses under the bridge and right into Lake Patricia. Lincoln Properties has proposed 3 catch basins on the far southwest end of the project. This does not offer protection from the remainder of the developed property that runs downhill eastward toward Eisenman into 10 Mile Creek, which then flows directly into the lake. They also have in their plans a substantial berm running the length of the property with undefined vegetation, which may or may not, over a period of years, provide erosion protection. As you can see in these slides, even after they tried some mitigation tactics, the Trinity property across from Blue Valley, which has a similar slope, the erosion is still very much a problem. Without an upfront full ground cover, runoff and erosion will continue to be an immediate and ongoing environmental pollutant into the lake. Something for each of you to think about. We have always had city code and regulations, but there used to be a time when reason and citizens' well-being was part of the equation. We now seem to have evolved to a place in the decision-making process where city employees all too often fall back on, sorry, it's the code, end of story. This approach often puts the citizens in the position of feeling, perhaps accurately, we don't matter. There is an old saying, the expedient cookie cutter approach makes no one happy and often leads to a long-term unintended consequences. Yes, codes matter, but we equally matter. Please don't be members of the cookie cutter club or us. We are residents of a viable, sorely needed, affordable housing community. We need you to make Lincoln property a quality residential transitional project. Thank you. And we are worth protecting.
Thank you. Next up is Catherine Reisenauer. Hopefully I got that close to being great. You would just state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Catherine Reisenauer. I live at 1973 Blue Sage Lane in Blue Valley Mobile Home Court. Thank you for this opportunity. I am very much against the building of this project. I really don't understand how it has even gotten this far. To me, it is exactly how zoning, the reason zoning came into being in the first place, to protect people from things like this happening. That project not only will have air pollution, water runoff problems. And I guess my overriding question is, who will be funding the lawsuits that will result? Like, will it be the tenants who try to come in and make a life for themselves with a business in that project? Will it be the owners who come here, lay down 1,000,000+ square feet of impermeable concrete and paving, and then go back to Seattle or wherever? Or will it be the city who seems to have made a zoning change no one knew about? And apparently, I've been told there are big tax breaks being offered to these people to come in and do this by the city. So I'm wondering where when the environmental lawsuits, the health-related lawsuits, the devaluation of property. I just bought last year and moved in here. I live along the south side. The views and the wildlife that I have enjoyed with my neighbors is going to be wiped out by this, completely and utterly wiped out. Will not be able to see beyond whatever they decide to put up. It took me a lot longer to write this than it has to say. So that's what I really want to know is whose responsibility will it be to take care of what happens when this happens? Do we need projects like the Chen McKenzie one? My opinion, and I'm just a citizen, is absolutely. Boise is a very vital, burgeoning community. And since I've been here, I have just been delighted about how easy it is to get around, how easy it is to shop for what you want, how many things are offered in Boise. It's a delightful place, and there's no mystery to me why people are coming here to live. I came here to live near my daughter, but there are many reasons. I see license plates from all over the United States. And we need projects like the Chen McKenzie project because we need all sectors of the city life to continue and to grow. Without that kind of thing, but I've been driving around in the neighborhood, and as far out, there are miles and miles and miles and miles of property that could be built on. It does not have to be slammed up against a residential property.
You might make your final remarks, please. Just to
Am I
keep it-
done?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's
Thank you very
okay. No,
much.
thank you. Next on the list was Michael, the applicant, so he'll have a chance to rebuttal at the end. After that was Bonnie, the neighborhood association, who already went. So continuing on, we have Rachel Reisenauer. And if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Rachel Reisnauer, and I live at 1973 Blue Sage Lane, Boise, Idaho, 83716. I've lived in Boise and the Treasure Valley for almost 20 years now. And I can tell you that what Boise needs what the growth is happening, whether we encourage it to or not. The changes I've just seen in the last 20 years are huge. However, in the last 2 years, I have seen and been witness to friends and coworkers being completely and utterly priced out of living in the Treasure Valley. And what you see at Blue Sage Lane is affordable housing. It is literally one of the only spots that at a full-time wage, I can afford to live with my mother. Okay, so all of the tenants in this proposed development, where are all of their employees supposed to live? Because I know that I work for a local company and I have lost coworkers to, I have to move out of the valley. It's fundamentally, and you can see it across the board. Anytime you try and go anywhere, especially within the entertainment and dining sector, those things that provide the core part of what Boise is, the downtown, the arts things, all of that. people are being priced out of this area. And what, to me, all of the space around us looks like to me is a really great place where there's actually space to possibly build affordable housing. Because when we look at like projects, that were discussed earlier in the meeting, that's not affordable housing. That's more housing, and more housing in general is important. But that is never going to be something that's an affordable housing option for the people who really provide, like, make the rest of it work. And we're losing that in Boise. And, that to me is the greatest thing about Blue Sage. And I mean, it's beautiful. The environmental, like the pictures in some ways don't even do it justice that we've seen tonight. But it's an affordable place to live where people have been living for 50 years and deserve to continue living without semis driving down the street and all of the stuff that comes with this level of commercial building. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. That concludes our items for our sign up sheet. Are there other members wishing to come forward? Yes, ma'am. If you'd like to come forward, you would please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kara Kane, and I'm at 8463 Blue Heaven Lane, Boise, Idaho 83716. So I'm writing in opposition of this current development. Blue Valley, it's a historically established, viable, sustainable, economical multifamily community. This project does not protect or preserve wildlife, takes away culture from Blue Valley residents, does not fit with the design of the Blue Valley community, does not help prevent sagebrush decline, does not preserve any of the historical value of the South Eisman area. This project will create too much congestion and compete for the nearby businesses who have not received notice or disclosure of this project. South Eisman has a unique land service form. 5 Mile Creek runs through Blue Valley, connecting the 9 Mile Creek and 10 Mile Creek. The entire Treasure Valley is developed around the creeks, and the area in front of the property that is being proposed to be developed is actual FEMA flood zone A. So altering along Blue Valley will also change the whole topography of the land in the waterway as it currently functions. It will significantly be altered. Air and water pollution and other environmental problems affect everyone. Many of the problems are acute and critical. There are 6 emissions, which are contaminants under the U.S. Clean Air Act. The EPA organizes into 2 types of standards, human health, and the secondary referring to welfare, environment, livestock, and property. We are in the middle of about 4.9 miles away from 2 conservative areas. There is also a livestock ranch, which is just across the railway. The Endangered Species Act was signed into law by Richard Nixon in December of 1972, and it recognized many native plants and animals were in danger of becoming extinct. The species which we coexist are of aesthetic, ecological, educational, recreational, and scientific value to our nation and its people. An environmental study was never done for the Blue Valley residents, and as well as a NEPA study 1970 was not done, which is done every other area. If urban renewal area does not meet the legislative intent of the URA laws, municipalities are misusing the power granted them by legislator. We did not get a chance to vote to be annexed into the city or to be a part of an urban renewal district, which I feel labeled us. I oppose this. Most of residents are low income. I think we are the last and very rare of affordable housing, and we shouldn't have to be fighting this hard for you to protect us. And I just have, sorry, one more thing to say. You guys you have a moral and ethical responsibility to protect human health and welfare and the environment, and please do so. Thank you.
There are other members that would like to come forward? Sure, please state your name and address for the record, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Peter Oliver. I'm at 250 South 5th Street. And I'm really here tonight. I am in support of the project and the applicant's design. And I'm really here tonight just to speak from a market and economic standpoint. Our firm just completed our quarterly update on vacancies as it relates to industrial properties. We're down now to 1%. And just for your info, a healthy market would be about 8 to 10% that allows for business expansion, new businesses coming in, et cetera. If you focus in on the airport submarket, it's actually 0.3%. So we're basically out of space. We can't accommodate our growing companies and companies looking to locate here. We need additional space, and Lincoln Properties is looking to step up, make a significant investment, not only in the project, but in the additional infrastructure that they will bring to the area through connectivity. They're focusing on that side of town because it has excellent freeway access. As was mentioned earlier, Isaacs Canyon, brand new, hardly utilized, part of why Winco is there, et cetera. So they're really leveraging off of what is already in place. Their design, which is 7 buildings, it breaks it up. It keeps it open. They're putting in probably more landscaping than I've ever seen in an industrial project. They're trying to address that. And because they're doing the different buildings and number, they're also able to accommodate a broader range of tenants and companies that are looking to be here. So in closing, and I'll keep these brief because we're nearing the end here, but this is where these types of projects belong. I mean, that's why the area is zoned what it is. And we've seen other projects go in. Again, access, increasing value for the neighboring properties, et cetera. So from a business standpoint, from a market standpoint, it's very warranted and it's very needed. So thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public wishing to testify? That haven't testified at this time? Sorry. Is that it? At this time, I'd invite the applicant up for any rebuttal.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Deborah Nelson, 601 West Bannock Street, here on behalf of the applicant, and other members of the applicant team might also participate and add in. Want to start with the comments on the zoning, where Ms. Hardy began too with the history. The site is currently designated in your flume as industrial, and it's been zoned M2 industrial since it was annexed in 2001. She asked the question about why was it M1 before. That's when it was in the county. So ever since it's been in the city for over 20 years, the uses that are allowed on this site have been known and already selected by the city. So we're not seeking a rezone. We don't need a rezone for the uses proposed. Instead, we're just here tonight for design review. And that's when it is appropriate for you to look to the site design to make sure that we're minimizing traffic, that we're providing adequate pedestrian connections, that we're providing adequate buffering, and looking at the architecture and massing, of course. And so, specific to address the neighbors' concerns that have come up, really deal with some of those that mitigation. So starting with the traffic, I want to point out that Eisenman Road does currently meet levels of service, and it will upon completion of the project. The project will be minimizing traffic impacts by the mitigation that is required. There will be those turn lanes that are required both at Freight Street intersection and at Winco Court intersection before the project can proceed. They are also providing an extensive pedestrian network with detached sidewalks throughout that will also improve that traffic flow. There will be no current connection to the north, just stubbed for future connectivity. Turning to construction, all construction, grading, and drainage will be done in accordance with city standards. We'll certainly have to contain our runoff on our site with drainage. And this is a place where sometimes the built environment can actually improve those conditions that the neighbors may be experiencing with runoff and erosion that they see from this site. And actually, once you have the drainage facilities that are built to standards, that can really help with that condition. As far as phasing goes, we are not no longer proposing a phasing plan, nor are we tied to a phasing plan. And so we will have flexibility. We might be able to provide that building A that's closer to them that will, of course, provide screening whenever it is built. But most importantly, I think to address the neighbors' concerns, we will be building the berm and landscaped buffer area with the first building, no matter which building it is. And so I think there was some concern expressed by the neighborhood association about the timing for that. So that will be an initial improvement to go ahead and provide that extensive berming. We can't control where the neighbors have built their improvements on their property line, but we certainly can on ours. And while only a 15-foot setback is required here between our building and the property line, we're providing 120 feet. And within that 120 feet, there will be no truck bays, and there will be over this 50-foot landscaped area with the extensive berm. And so extensive compatibility measures and buffering have been taken here to recognize that even though the neighboring property to the north is zoned industrial as well and also planned industrial, we recognize there is an existing residential community. You can tell from the residents, they're happy there and they're thriving, and we're doing everything we can to accommodate that ongoing use with the landscape, with the buffer, and with attention to our improvements that they see from their property line. And so with that, unless anybody else has anything to add, we would and we, of course, stand for any further questions you have, but we request your approval. We do ask for your approval of the modified condition 1A that staff presented, and also condition 1G regarding the landscape that's shown. The staff had asked for that landscape buffer to extend all the way further on the north to the west corner. And we would just ask that we will provide additional landscaping there as was shown in the updated landscape plan presented this evening. But we can only do that to the extent that the utilities will allow there. So that will be in that corner that will provide screening there. And so that we ask for that change as well. With that, we'll stand for any further questions you might have.
Questions for the applicant at this time? Mr. Rudin?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You went kind of quick over that phasing thing. And that's the sort of the one thing that stands out in my mind is with that building A there, the site to the north is going to be much quieter. A lot of sound isn't going to go across there. A lot of lights, a lot of things aren't going to happen with the berm or without the berm. If that building A is not there for a year, 5 years, 10 years, big deal. Mm-hmm. And you said, yeah, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, but you never really did say when you're going to phase that building. So if you have something more specific, I would appreciate knowing that, I guess.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Committee Member Rudin, it's a fair question. And so we have no obligation to phase it in any particular order. We did want to put that building there first, and that is still our desire. So it is our hope that that will still be the first building that is constructed. We had to change that around and initially did propose a different phasing plan based on comments from ACHD about the road build out, but we no longer have that constraint. And so now we do have the flexibility to go back to that. And if market conditions continue to support that as we think they will, That is our desired first building. But just in, we do ask for flexibility in case that's not possible. And so that's why we point to what mitigation we can provide right up front. And that is that berm and landscaping area. The conditions already require extensive trees that are already very mature to be planted there. You've got also, I think you said, okay, the building will provide additional screening, and that's true. But if other buildings are built first, they're also further away, and so the noise will dissipate. So that will also protect from that. The berm is going to protect any headlights from the day it's built. That's the design of it. So we do hope that happens, and we're also hopeful that we'll be able to proceed with the building A first.
Thank you.
Other questions from the applicant? Real quick on a geotechnical and the level of basalt and the areas of where these building pads are. Do you guys have some of that information at this time?
Chairman, no, we don't have that yet. We don't know the extent of blasting that will be required at this time, but certainly whatever construction standards are necessary, they will apply with all applicable codes.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just want to verify if there was anyone online that wished to testify tonight. You would please raise your hand, virtually raise your hand. Seeing none. Okay, just wanted for that for the record. With that, we'll close the public portion of the testimony, bring it back to the committee for discussion and a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. Caitlin, can you pull up the modified A? My first question is for actually council. Yes, surprise. Or maybe it's for Josh too, so I think I can publicly ask this question. When Blue Valley was up, and I believe there were some negotiations with the city and the land swap or something a few years ago, was there any conditions or any commitments the city made to the community in terms of buffering or protections or anything else like that, that wasn't perhaps maybe considered in the staff report?
Mr. Chair, Committee Member Aguilar, not that I am aware of.
And another question for Caitlin. This is probably more of a building department question, but just to be out on the record and for the Blue Valley folks to hear and understand. I believe when the applicant submits to the building department, I believe they're going to have to submit their geotech report. And I also believe that if there's any blasting required, the appropriate noticing and mitigations and whatever else is required by code will be necessary to report. Is there a requirement, to your knowledge, to notice the community if blasting is required within a certain distance or timing of that?
Mr. Chair, Committee Member Aguilar, I'm not aware of anything in our code that would require notice. I'm not sure of outside of city requirements, if there's any other kind of requirements with the state or anything.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Simple.
This is kind of, I guess, in addition to committee member Rudin's comments about the building A, looking at site specific condition G, it's not a whole lot, but I mean, it does state that the north landscape buffer and fence has to be completed prior to occupancy of any buildings. So even if they built one on the far south end of their project, this seems to state that before any activities other than construction on the site is occurring, that that buffer and berm and all that stuff would be installed. It doesn't, I know that 6-foot trees aren't, 30 or 40-foot trees at maturity. And I'm very sensitive to the residents out there and the impacts of construction and development adjacent to them. We were all, I believe, on the committee when the other project north of their site came before us. And so, this seems to be a little bit more extensive of some conditions placed on here to provide some protections to them. I would definitely encourage the applicant to do everything they can to acquire plant material as soon as possible so it can be as large as possible at the time of planting. I know we say a minimum of 6 feet tall. I, again, highly encourage them to look at finding and sourcing larger plant material to provide additional protections, especially because it appears as though the property line shared between the Blue Valley residents and this site might not be falling exactly where improvements to people's backyards have been made. So I just wanted to be on the record talking about that there is some protection there. I feel like the applicant is, they're extending the berm to the west. I understand the easements that are involved there. It looks like there's some other opportunity for landscaping on that portion west of Warehouse Drive or Warehouse Way. So I would hope to see some more landscaping in those spaces around those drainage basins and along the buildings to help provide additional buffering there as well. That's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Simple. Comments?
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Caitlin, this is kind of a little bit offside on this one, but what is HCHD's? What I see on these projects that we're getting here that are on adjoining sites, they're all doing their part if they abut Eisman Way for curb gutter and sidewalk. And it's kind of a checkerboard thing going along. All the pictures that we see from the applicant is the site immediately adjacent to Blue Lakes over there where they have no sidewalks. The side roads are terrible. The erosion is terrible. What is ACHD's plan for grabbing a hold of this thing and improving Eisman Road to take care of the things that are occurring on either side of Blue Lakes? Do you know what year is it, a master plan, the vision?
Mr. Chair, committee members, Abala, I know their widening isn't happening. There's no funding for their widening for quite a while yet. That might change as there's more development out there. Sometimes things can get pushed sooner. In regards to sidewalk, usually we do get the sidewalk as development goes in. So for existing developed parcels, there would need to be a special sidewalk project. This is in an urban renewal area, so we might have more opportunities for projects like that. I don't know if the city's looking at that right now. I don't have any information about that, but that might be something else we could look into.
Okay, it's just a real shame. I think those pictures, I remember seeing them years ago when we first saw this come through, and the conditions of the road on either side along that stretch are just deplorable. Just like
Mr. Chairman, committee members of all, I'll just add that the ACHC report indicates that Eisman Road will be widened to 3 lanes between 2036 and 2040, and that would include roadway improvements. That design has not taken place obviously yet since it's so far out. ACHD typically holds open houses, takes public input on those roadway sections, and they can use that input with the available funds to determine what the appropriate design for that road is. But that will take place, when this comes up for improvement, which is, again, some time out.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Simple.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to to add a couple other comments to committee members of Allah's question comments. Also, when I'm encouraging things, I happen to know that there's a few commissioners on ACHD, their board now, that are much more inclined to look at pedestrian safety, and especially when there's conditions like those that are occurring along Eisenman in front of Blue Valley. I'm sure that the neighborhood association, or I'm hoping that they've reached out to them in the past, but I would again encourage them to reach out to ACHD commissioners to show them the condition of this roadway in front of them, because it is in a state that is not conducive to pedestrian safety. There's not much we can do as the design review committee for Boise to require that to be done. But knowing that there are some commissioners that are, I guess, encouraging those improvements to occur, even if it's just a sidewalk that's placed in a location that in the future widening would be in the location that they need it. That could be a route for getting ACHD to accelerate at least that portion of the improvement, because it is challenging when there are these projects going in around them that only for the fact that they don't abut Eisenman adjacent to them, that these aren't being completed. So I guess I'm just trying to give some options for the residents there for avenues that could help improve that condition when we don't really have the authority to require someone to do that offsite improvement.
Mr. Simple, other comments, or maybe you want to take a stab at a motion tonight?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
More in the line of comments than a motion at this point. From our perspective, if there wasn't that residential area sitting there and you weren't here telling us all these things, if we look at the buildings that are being proposed in the internal circulation and all the reports that you've done at face value, it's a wonderful project and it meets an economic need that everybody wouldn't have trouble arguing that it isn't a good thing, that we don't want it to have happen. And yet we're in a position of trying to do, quote, unquote, the right thing. And I'm not sure exactly how to do that. And I'm not sure if we have the power to do that. But if we have the power to send a message to somebody, I would like to entertain how to do that. The first people I would want to send a message to would be the city council, to be sure that they haven't misrepresented what they said to these people in terms of trying to do the right thing for them, and ask them, what is this consistent with what they envisioned when the other project went through? I'd asked the Planning and Zoning Commission to somehow address the imbalance that's created because there's a residential piece stuck with an odd zone in the midst of M2 and M1 zoning that seems inconsistent, and they need to somehow address that in a meaningful way. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but that's in their quiver and not ours. And then the other one is ACHD. It's clearly, if we can make the request that they accelerate any work to be done along the infrastructure roads sooner than 2035, we would like to see that. If we can make those requests, great. I don't know whether that's consistent with what other people think on the committee and whether we have that in our power to make those requests, but outside of that, the project's a good project.
Okay. Excellent comments. If we were looked at, kind of bring this back to, as you were saying, just the project in general. I do believe the applicants put forth some design strategies to try to minimize a lot of the concerns with the adjacent neighborhood, being it some of the other projects that we've seen in these areas are 1 million square feet in a single building. This one's broken up into several buildings. For the most part, almost all of the The truck docks are facing away from the neighborhood with the exception of building E, partially with building D. Those ones appear to be about 800 feet away from the neighborhood. Would encourage that the building A, as kind of stated before, provides that visual and a noise and just kind of a barrier between the other parts of the development and the residential. I think the efforts on the berm, I think the grade change is actually probably a positive thing of providing a visual screen, as well as it is getting these kind of uses up and noise levels higher than the adjacent residential. So as you kind of stated, I think on paper, without the other concerns that were brought up with the adjacent portion of the zoning and the residential pieces, it seems like it's a appropriate project from kind of the letter of what we have to review here tonight. But I'd entertain any other thoughts on comments.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Simple.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what committee member Rudine said about this. We see a lot of these, and it's unfortunate that, a lot of the information is outside, or the decision making has either been completed before we get to see it, or it's outside of our purview. We can make a lot of recommendations. We can, that being said, we don't have a lot of power to change those items. All of these minutes, they go in front of city council for their review, I believe. And, we would, tonight, I'm encouraging, I know that committee member Rudine is encouraging the residents here to really ask those questions to the decision-making bodies that have set this up for this M2 zone adjacent to a residential zone that's in an M1 zone, or I'm sorry, residential use within an M1 zone. How that happened 20 years ago or longer ago is unfortunately not something that we can really change at this point. By having this conversation, though, I think it's showing that we want to try to protect the residents of the residential communities in our area. We have asked for this applicant to provide some changes to their site design, which they did. I think that locating those truck docks away from the north side of the property is the best option for them, for the applicant. It might not be the best option for the community, but there are some other bodies other than us that could possibly weigh in and to touch again on something that, it did sound like the city council and the previous mayor had made some comments that they wanted to right a wrong or proceed with some additional protections for this area. But it doesn't seem like there's anything really put into writing or put into code that did that. And so if there is something that's out there, it would be good to know about. The applicant, I'm sure, has done their due diligence on that end too. And we probably wouldn't be here tonight looking at this project as it sits if there was something that prohibited this completely. And we might not like the proximity to the residential zone, but ultimately they do, internal of the project and what they've done to revise this does meet or exceed a lot of our standards on the design review committee. And I guess I'm going to take a stab at a motion because I think that we need to get through this and allow the next steps to occur on it. And so I'm going to move to approve DRH 22-00073 as recommended in the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommended conditions of approval noted in the project report, including the revised condition of approval. I think it's A.
Modified condition A.
Yes.
Yes, that would be my motion.
So moved by Mr. Simple.
Mr. Chairman, before a second, the applicant had asked for an updated item G also. Did you want to include that or stick with what the staff report had to say?
Knowing that there's some impacts of that gas line that's out there, that's a pretty major, I would say that with the revisions to recommended condition G as proposed by the applicant would be appropriate.
Okay, as part of your motion then amended.
Yes.
We have a motion by Mr. Simple. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Rudine. At this time, discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Rudine.
With the consent of the person making the motion, and I wanted to wait for the second to be sure that everybody might have an agreement, could I add to our motion that we would request that that staff express our concerns for addressing equitable solutions for each of the people that we've talked about. Let me get that straight again. I tried to write this down quickly and it didn't come out so good. Would the staff express our concerns to the city council, zoning, and ACHD for addressing equitable solutions within each of their purviews regarding the residents adjacent to the project?
So that's a.
So it's really a request. I don't know whether that's appropriate in terms of a motion for this.
I think it's just a comment to staff. Yeah, but
Okay.
so not necessarily anything that's needs.
It's not binding certainly to the project.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with that, whether or not it's a condition.
So right now, I think that probably wouldn't be a condition, but just a comment to staff.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to add to that comment to staff. I believe Mr. Udine was wanting to have that communicated to council, to the mayor. It needs to include CCDC since it's an urban renewal district. And I also think it needs to be communicated to BVEP as well. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion?
I'm in agreement with my second.
Mr. Chair, and I all of the comments that have been made after the motion and the second, I'm in total agreement with as well. I think that this needs to be brought to the attention to the elected officials of our city. I think that there's been a disconnect somewhere, and it just needs to be addressed somehow.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Simple. So we have a motion with modified condition A, and I believe we're doing a modified condition G per the applicants. That's the motion on the floor at the moment. Moved and seconded, no more discussion. With that, I'll please call the roll.
Simple,
Aye.
Zabala,
Aye.
Udine,
Aye.
Marsh,
Aye.
Aguilar,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you very much. And that concludes our items for tonight. And with that, we are adjourned.